Thank you for staying. Let's get into the news now. And in our first story, government has announced the reopening of Ghana's land borders after 2 years of closure. President Akufo-Addo says this will allow for the flow of human traffic through neighboring countries after the borders were closed in March 2020. The decision was meant to be a measure to reduce the spread of the COVID-19 virus in the country. The president has been addressing the nation on measures to mitigate the effects of COVID-19.
It is worth noting that the establishment of the COVID-19 testing infrastructure at the Kotoka International Airport by Frontier Healthcare Services Limited at its own cost has been key to our ability to limit successfully the importation of the virus into Ghana through the airport. The efficacy of the testing regime at KIA has won global admiration and has been applauded by all those who have undergone its testing. It has been one of the reasons why Ghana was not at the receiving end of several of the travel bans imposed by the West at the height of the pandemic, for which many African countries were affected. As from tomorrow, Monday, the 28th March, all land and sea borders will be opened. Fully vaccinated travelers will be allowed entry through the land and sea borders without a negative PCR test result from the country of origin. Citizens and foreign residents in Ghana who are not fully vaccinated will have to produce a negative 48-hour PCR test result and will be offered vaccination on arrival.
Government is also allowing the opening of public spaces to full capacity from today. President Akufo-Addo says the limitations and bans placed on huge gatherings have been removed.
Monday, 28th March. The wearing of face masks is no longer mandatory. I encourage all of you, though, to continue to maintain enhanced hand hygiene practices and avoid overcrowded gatherings. All in-person activities, such as those that take place in churches, mosques, conferences, workshops, private parties and events, cinemas and theaters, may resume at full capacity as long as the audience and all participants are fully vaccinated. Hand washing and hand sanitizing points should be made available at these venues. Outdoor functions at sporting events, entertainment spots, political rallies and funerals may resume at full capacity, again, as long as all persons at those events are fully vaccinated. Government continue to engage all religious and traditional leaders, agencies and institutions to encourage their congregants, subjects and citizens respectfully to be vaccinated to help achieve the 20 million target.
Now, a survey conducted by the Ghana Tourism Authority has revealed that 80% of hotels in the Upper West region downsized the number of workers as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The same percentage of conferences for hotels was also cancelled. Upper West Regional Director of the Ghana Tourism Authority, Moses Ndebugri, who made the disclosure, noted that the Ghana Cares Obatampa program will help the industry in the region spring back to business. Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports from WA.
The Ghana Tourism Authority of the Upper West region takes their turn of the nationwide training program under the Ministry of Tourism to implement the Ghana Cares Obatampa program. About 300 persons from the industry in the region attended the training program under 3 areas, namely tourism product knowledge, customer service and digital marketing. The Upper West Regional Director of the Ghana Tourism Authority in an interview stated that the impact of COVID-19 in the tourism industry is devastating and that about 80% of hotels downsize their workers in the region.
Of it, when we did the survey, we realized that about 80% of the hotels in the region had to downsize their staff, and about almost the same number equally cancel their conferences. And of course, you could see that we couldn't even travel. So there were no people coming into the region. So it actually impacted negatively on the operators, especially the hotels, the restaurants, the side guys and managers. So it actually affected our businesses very much, I must say. But as I said, with this training, we are believing that it will open another opportunity for the business owners to reposition their businesses, and then we would be expecting more of the tourists to come and then enjoy themselves in the region.
A resource person at the workshop, Apalo Lolo, who took the participants through customer service, stated that the people now know the custom is kind of their business. On digital marketing, Kingsley Dredd Azalate noted that digital marketing is now the way to go and implored on the participants to embrace it. He, however, lamented that majority of the participants have little knowledge about social media, especially the use of the internet.
After going through some of even the basic things, I realized that, oh no, these guys most of them don't even know what the social media is. They don't even know how to use the tools available to even market themselves. And you know, it's as much as it's sad to even look at, and the limelight of it is that we are seeing the enthusiasm from them, and we are also seeing the zeal to be able to get onto the global page, to be able to market their services.
Upper West Regional Chairman of the Pubs and Drinking Associations, Sunta Kumbe, was grateful to the GTA for the workshop. He, however, wished that it should be expanded to cover other participants.
A one-day program for such huge number of people that are patronized could have been at least either 2 days, or they could have divided them into two. You could see there at a point the hall was hit up because of the numbers. There was a great patronage, and I think GTA have done their best by reaching the people, because they called me personally on phone, booking people on phone to register, and I think that they really went down to the grassroots of the people their business partners that they were dealing with. And that has actually increased the patronage in the program. So going forward, if we expect such numbers in future, there's a need to break the numbers into two for 2-day program. Maybe this particular aspect or category of businesses for first day, then second day another.
Rafiq Salam's report from WA.
Now, at least 50 children with disabilities in the Upper East region have been given mobility aids to support their movement to school and also aid their learning. The children have received wheelchairs and wheeled tricycles donated by Worldwide Healthcare Ghana in partnership with child rights NGO Afri Kids Ghana. Now, a number of medical wheelchairs have also been donated to healthcare facilities in the region to support the movement of vulnerable patients. Correspondent Albert Sori has more.
The children with various forms of physical challenges were selected from Sandema in the Busa North District, Serego in the Kasana Nankana West District, Bongo and Bolgatanga. At Bongo, where some parents and guardians of the children gathered to receive the wheelchairs and tricycles, a mother said her cerebral palsy child had become heavier as she got older, and it was becoming increasingly difficult for her to carry this child on her back from place to place. When I carry her around on my back and walk a short distance, my waist and chest begin to pain. These wheelchairs given to us will relieve us a lot, especially me, because I could not have afforded such an equipment. Worldwide Healthcare, an Imperial Logistics SA Group company, is engaged in the distribution and marketing of medical products to wholesale, retail, hospitals and institutions. This donation to the persons with disabilities was in line with the company's belief that the welfare of such persons should be seen as a human right. Shailendra Sharma is Managing Director of Worldwide Healthcare Limited.
So as a part of our corporate social responsibility for the group, we have certain commitments that we want to take care of it. The two areas that we normally focus on for the donations part of it, which is the healthcare part of our effort and the education. So this opportunity was, was to do more with the healthcare part of it, providing relief to the disabled people, but also to provide relief to, the medical wheelchairs, which are very much wanted by certain institutions.
The beneficiaries were identified by AfriKids Ghana through their work in the areas. External Affairs Director at AfriKids Ghana, Raymond Ayine, said AfriKids was proud to be partners in a charity event that was bringing a huge relief to vulnerable people.
But this is actually part of a more well thought through process of providing relief by way of wheelchairs and tricycles to persons with disability. For us as AfriKids, we believe that education, healthcare and child protection are the pillars in terms of what we do as a charity. And so this comes under our healthcare and child protection work. And the hope is that children will be better protected and better cared for through the provision of these wheelchairs.
Some healthcare facilities, including the AfriKids Medical Center at Bolgatanga, also received medical wheelchairs to support the movement of vulnerable patients in the facilities. In all, 27 wheelchairs and 25 wheel tricycles were donated. For JoyNews, Albert Sorry, reporting from Bolgatanga.
Let's talk about Black Gold. And Tullow Ghana, an oil and gas exploration and production company, says it believes that a good education will equip the people to participate in the opportunities that the oil and gas industries deliver. The company is therefore embarking on educational initiatives intended to develop interest and skills in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics from kindergarten to tertiary levels. There's more in this report.
Deputy Managing Director Tullow Ghana, Cynthia Lumo, disclosed this when the company commissioned an ultra-modern sustainable kindergarten facility at Aboisi in the Shamar district of the Western region. The project, which is a Montessori-style kindergarten, forms part of the foundation's development of interest in STEM. The new 2-classroom KG facility has a playground, a canteen, and a washroom. It was constructed with sustainable materials and community participation to ensure easy maintenance and collective ownership by the people for whom it is provided.
But what we have done is not just the infrastructure, which is of course very important, but Tullow has also made sure that the training of the teachers, the head teachers, according to Ghana Educational Service pedagogy and in line with Montessori systems, which creates, as you know, confidence in the way that children learn and absorb and apply what they learn. So the importance of this project is really to provide the very good foundation that then helps them to progress through to basic school, secondary school and tertiary education. And all of this is focused on STEM education, which we all know is very, very important for innovation and development.
A Deputy Minister of Energy, Andrew Ejapamesa, praised Tullow Ghana for implementing a project to give the children a head start in their educational journey, particularly in the study of STEM.
The children of the Western region, this facility will not only be a place to study, but help them nurture and develop interest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics-related careers. With the carefully planned layout of the school and the robust pedagogy, I am confident that teaching and learning at this facility will be exciting and insightful. I also seize this opportunity to thank Tullow Ghana and its partners for the support they are giving to the free SHS policy as we behold this new classroom block. It must be emphasized that with it comes responsibility to care for and maintain the facility for the present and future benefit of all.
Executive Director of Sabri Education, an international consulting firm, Tony Drogbe, says Talu and Sabri believe that STEM education must start from an early age where the children are naturally curious.
Children learn through play, not only in terms of this playground, but in many of the activities they do in the classroom and out of the classroom is play. On the playground, they are learning to cooperate and share, which is very important. These are skills children need to know at a very early age. It's the child and the needs of the child that is coming first, you know. And we believe that it's not enough for the school to just do this. Parents must also take on the challenge of making sure that they bring the needs of the children first. So this is what has informed this facility, and this is what makes it different from other facilities you will see around the country.
Headmistress of the school, Vida Nana Bentum, said the name of Talu will forever be permanently imprinted in the minds of the children. For Joy News in Athalia, Kwanza, Western Region.
Well, it's a call to service, priesthood, a call that not so many would be able to answer. With more than a decade of training required and very strict vows, including an oath to be celibate for life, it's not child's play to be a Catholic priest. Yet, it is a vocation many take pride in. In the following report, Justice Beidou tells the story of a newly ordained priest and his hopes of keeping his vows.
Happy moment for a mother and her son. It's a day before Father Stephen Daniels holds his first Mass at the St. John the Evangelist Parish, the Catholic church that he was born into. He's a freshly minted Catholic priest. Town folk who saw him grow up and those who know his family have poured onto the streets in celebration.
Quite many people, they are now shouting and they are thanking God for me because nobody thought that I can be a priest today. I can also see myself as a Catholic priest, the first ever priest also in my family.
It's the morning after, a Sunday. The church is packed to full capacity. Being a priest in the Catholic Church comes with very strict requirements. First, it takes more than 10 years for one to go through training.
Not everyone has this opportunity. Not every family gets this honor. I am overjoyed. God has given us a gift. I am lost for words. Because of this honor he has done, I will continue to serve him till the day I go to rest with my Maker.
They take and live by 3 vows: an oath of poverty, an oath of obedience, and an oath of celibacy, which requires that you are not supposed to have sex with any woman, and of course, not bear children.
To be a chaste and a human way is not easy. You have to forgo a particular person that you have in life and embrace everybody as a family. Because when you go into the marriage life, you are going to embrace a particular family, then you raise up your kids when God bless you with kids. Now, when we deny ourselves, or when we vow for the vow of chastity, or when we become priests without marrying, it means we want to forgo a particular family and embrace a whole family in a chastity way.
The Catholic Church revolves heavily around its priests. Several key parts of its service, like communion, cannot happen without a priest in the church.
I gave birth to 6 boys and 3 girls. There are people who do not have children at all. So if God has given me 6, and He in His own wisdom wants only one to come do His work, to carry the cross, who am I to stop Him? Because my son will not give birth? No.
Not many people are able to live by these requirements, and so many fall off. And for those who stay true to the end of their training, like Father Daniels, it's a big accomplishment. It's uncertain how long the church would hold on to these very, very strict standards for its priests. But for those who choose the vocation as a way of life, like Father Daniels, it's a choice worth making. And he says he will spend each day in the rest of his life keeping to his calling with joy. Justice Baidu, Joy News, Abua, in the Western region.
Beautiful, isn't it? And on that note, we draw the curtains on the AM news. But up next, the news review as we get into the most topical matters in our newspapers today. Do stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome to the newspaper review. We get into the most topical matters that the papers are carrying this morning. Let's start with the Daily Graphic newspaper. And Minerals Fund must provide economic livelihood for mining communities. That's the Chamber of Mines CEO. 2021-2022 school placement out. Free TVET takes off. Now, this is interesting. In my interaction this morning with Professor Ivan Adai-Mensah, he will be talking about this all-important matter, TVET, and how we have failed on a technical level, technical and vocational level, to sort of pivot our country or leverage on that to develop the country. Let me go to some details of that, pick some details of that on page 14 of the newspaper. And let's just get to page 14. There you are. So the Ministry of Education has announced that the free technical and vocational education and training initiative introduced by the government has been operationalized this academic year. Consequently, all qualified basic education certificate examination candidates who choose to pursue TVET at any government-approved senior high school, senior high technical school, or any TVET institution will enjoy all the benefits of the free SHS initiative. So that is the point there. And a very welcome one. But another point to be made is 65 years on, what exactly have we done with technical vocational training? You look at the fact that GSTS, the Ghana Secondary Technical School, which, I mean, was founded even before the likes of St. Augustine's and Infantipim and all of that. It had been there purposely for this. It had world-class equipment at the time. Yet, look at it today. And no country has developed without building its human resource via education, and especially from the standpoint of technical and vocational education. That is the middle level. That is the developmental level. Not everyone becomes a medical doctor or a lawyer and all of that. These are the ones who, with their technical and vocational skills, like we see in Egypt, they make a country. We're failed in that respect. And no wonder, little wonder, we are where we find ourselves on the scale of development. So that is why it is crucial. But there is a move to revamp the sector, and hopefully this move leads to some crucial changes in our educational system. 28th COVID-19 update. Ghana opens borders. Face masks no longer mandatory. But the warning has been given. Last night I was here interacting with Dr. Bayuo, General Secretary of the GMA, and Dr. Anaba as well. Both of them concur on this bit. Don your mask for your own safety. Yes, Mr. President has said it is not mandatory. But if you, wherever you find yourself, if you feel that this space, I need to, cover up and all of that, do that for your own safety. But here are some details. The country's land and sea borders have been opened from today, 2 years after COVID-19 travel restrictions were imposed. Besides, the wearing of face masks is no longer mandatory. These were the major highlights of President Akufo-Addo's 28th update on Ghana's enhanced response to the COVID-19 pandemic, delivered last night, in case you missed it. According to the president, fully vaccinated travelers would be allowed entry through the land and sea borders without a negative PCR test result from the country of origin. He noted that Ghana had reached a critical point in its fight against COVID-19, and government had to undertake a comprehensive review of the raft of measures put in place to help win the fight against the virus. Now, there have been calls from various aspects of our economic endeavor, from hotels to other business people, saying that we are bleeding financially. And finally, it appears this has it has reached the ears of the powers that be. But how are we going to do this with the necessary caution to ensure that we don't expose ourselves to more waves of the COVID-19 pandemic, and also ensure, when Mr. President says, when there are mass gatherings, ensure that you are checking the vaccination status of people. We know that there are fake vaccination cards. We know that it's not to be contested. People pay and get them, unfortunately. We also know that not everyone has been vaccinated. And how practical is it, really? Expecting that people will, let's say, go to the stadium and everyone will bear a vaccination card. Maybe in that instance it can be controlled. But how about at a rally? Another thing that now we're open to. So some dynamics to consider. But all in all, we'll get the reactions of business people as well who are calling for this, and see how happy they are with the development. In other stories in the Daily Graphic newspaper, ECOWAS hints of tough action against Mali, Guinea, and Burkina Faso. And the Economic Community of West African States has, at its extraordinary summit on the situations in Mali, Guinea, and Burkina Faso, called on the juntas in the three countries to quickly return to constitutional pathways. The regional bloc said that it would lead to peace and stability, as well as socio-economic development. It remains to be seen whether these three countries will comply. There's also World Meteorological Day 2022, which was established on March 23rd, 1950. This year's theme for the WMD, early warning and early action. Why am I touching on this? Well, the dynamics in our part of the world, tropical area, and with all the dynamics of global warming, we have quite a bit to digest. Our weather patterns have been changing radically or drastically. Question is, are we preparing for what is coming? Temperatures are changing. We are suffering the brunt here. It's going to affect even farmers in terms of when it rains, in terms of the heat on their plants and all of that. How are we preparing ourselves as a country? That is another conversation. On page 9, Israel hosting historic 6-way U.S.-Arab meeting. You can check out details of that. Le Pen heckled by protesters. That's in France. And on the back page of the paper, Princesses book under 20 Women's World Cup ticket. We're often talking about the men, but the women have done us really proud for many years. Now, Ghana's under 20 female football team, Black Princesses, have picked a ticket for one of Africa's 2 slots at the 16-nation FIFA Women's World Cup scheduled for Costa Rica in August. The Princesses qualified by spanking, and it was indeed a spanking, Ethiopia by 5-1 on aggregate in their final round qualifying tie. So while we try to book a spot for the Black Stars of Ghana, well, the Princesses are in a comfortable lead. Let's get into the Ghanaian Times newspaper now. 2021 school placement. Government rolls out free TVET this year. Already a story we've digested in the Daily Graphic newspaper. 4 young Ghanaian business leaders grab awards at 40 Under 40 Africa Awards. Story on page 15. Let's celebrate our own when they achieve feats, shall we? So let's quickly get to that page. Let's see who and who made the cut. Now, 4 young Ghanaian business leaders were over the weekend awarded for their remarkable contributions to socio-economic growth of the African continent. They include Ronald Tego, my sincere apologies, Ronald Tego, science and technology entrepreneur. Nelson Madiba Amo received the People's Choice Award. Kofi Amoa Aban, oil and gas entrepreneur, and Bernard Kofi Bonaparte for his contributions to social entrepreneurship. They received the awards at the 40 Under 40 Africa Awards event held in Accra, aimed at celebrating the achievements of young entrepreneurs. Let's get into some other stories now. And 10 charged over violent clashes at Bonsaso. And the 10 suspects who were arrested after violent clashes at Bonsaso in the Takwa and Swayim municipality of the Western Region appeared before the Takwa Magistrate Court B on Friday and were remanded into police custody. They were charged with murder, causing harm, and possessing firearms, and they are to reappear on May the 4th, 2022. You can't take the law into your own hands, and the long arms of the law will reach you, and when it does, well, you'll get what's coming to you. A 52-year-old alleged murderer granted bail. You would know the cases in the past about bailable and non-bailable offenses, and a landmark case that changed the situation in terms of non-bailable offenses. If you followed the situation to do with Oliver Mause Bakavomawo, you would understand what I am pointing to. But in this instance, a 52-year-old farmer, Kwabena Ampoma, who allegedly murdered his cousin, Madam Adwa Bedu, aged 63, was on Thursday granted 100,000 Ghana cedi bail with 2 sureties to be justified by the Sunyani High Court. 2. There's also Carpenter, 48, jailed 20 years for defilement. On page 12, Eastern Regional NPP Youth Organizer suspended for unfounded allegations against President and National Chairman. I'm talking about Mr. Ado, Eastern Regional. So pictured there is Mr. Ado, Eastern Regional Secretary of the NPP, but this has to do with the youth organizer, Kwejo Osu Efriye. In other stories, there's also stars will shine over Super Eagles. That's according to Coach Otto Addo. What do you think? A bit of a good performance on the 25th, that is Tuesday, from the Black Stars. They actually shone for a bit. They commanded the midfield. Of course, Nigeria was missing the potent efforts of Ndidi. But as we go to Abuja, the Abuja crowd is not as ferocious. You see what we saw in Kumasi, that is what you get in Kumasi. But the Abuja crowd is not as ferocious and as intimidating as the Lagos crowd. A bit posh, if you like. But what is going to be the impact? And is Thomas Partey, the sitting captain, going to come good this time? He didn't have a good first encounter. Are we going to qualify? You can share your thoughts with us with the hashtag AMShow. Let's get into the final newspaper now. President lifts COVID-19 restrictions. We've already been talking about that. Dr. Kwame Boateng makes compelling case for financing renewable energy projects. There's also free SHS, 367,811 get placement, 187,542 to do self-placement. That's according to the Education Ministry. There's also Sino-Hydro roads on display as Dr. Baumia cuts sort for additional 100 kilometers. And Apiate Reconstruction, Lands Minister opens bid for contractors. One thing I am looking forward to, and I'm being very open and very blunt about it, is for His Excellency, the Vice President, to speak about the economy. He's been deafeningly silent. And we've been told that in the days to come, he's going to be talking about the economy early April. I look forward to that. Not for any diabolical reasons, like, of course, in this country, we are so polarized that we feel if you are here, then it means, or you're suggesting something, it means you must be in this place. You can be in the middle, but the point is, I would like to find out, as head of the economic management team, what he thinks about our economy, honestly. What he hopes can be done about the economy to bring it out of where we are. Take, for example, the recent measures announced by Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta on the back of soaring, skyrocketing fuel prices, an increase of about 5 cedis per litre within a space of months, and how much is taken off 15 pesos. The transport unions are threatening to up the ante in terms of their transport fares and all of that. So it would be interesting to find out from the Vice President what he has to say about our economy now and moving forward. But in other stories, do not overlook abortion-related deaths. That's according to the Ghana Health Service, which brings to mind some statistics from Texas as I was listening to it recently. A state in the United States that has a bit of a dichotomy when it comes to abortion rights and when you can do it. Of course, here in our country, the illegality of most of it also creates quite a picture. I, for one, as a Catholic and a very proud one, staunch one as well, I am not in for it. But then there are instances per the law where these are granted. And sometimes people just fall out of the bracket. Domahine announces establishment of Bonoman Development Fund. And there's also the bit about, let me go to this one, yeah? Our very own Samson Ladi Anyanene has a feature on page 7 of the Finder newspaper. Don't be disappointed, just get RTI working. You remember Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah said that he was disappointed that after all the efforts and everything to get us the right to information law, not too many people were getting in there. There were responses from the likes of ACE investigative journalist Manasseh Azuri Awene on the back of the fact that it is an arduous, tedious, tortuous process. Yeah, torturous to get information. You would recall that in recent times, we here at JoyNews tried to get information from the Health Ministry on Agenda 111. You saw what we went through. So it is what it is. And sometimes with entities asking you for huge sums of money, I don't know whether we are actually achieving the ends of the RTI law. But keep pushing, we shall. We shall. Till we get to that point where we're getting what we need. We must stand in the gap and get the right information for you, like we always do here with our fearless, credible, and independent journalism. More details from the Finder newspaper. And Apiata Reconstruction, Lands Minister opens bid for contractors. Most of the stories in other papers as well. Let's quickly get into some others. Let me go for the Daily Guide newspaper as well as the Daily Dispatch. Let's take it from there. Opare Ansan declares secretary bid. That story there. Party politics and COVID-19 wahala. Nana opens borders, no nose masks, testing at KIA. That is another crucial matter. The testing at KIA being taken off. And it's interesting because the Minority Caucus had threatened to picket at the KIA. And this has happened. We had heard from an aviation expert who had said that if we continued with especially with our testing and cost regime, we were likely to lose our status as Africa's preferred airport. Thankfully, this has been lifted, and I guess some people can rest easy when it comes to COVID-19. Not to mention that regardless of what anyone would say, it was simply exorbitant what we were charging at the airport. It was a no-brainer. And some of the things that have happened, we're just happy that that has been lifted and people can rest easy. Dr. Kwame Boateng writes on renewable energy, free SHS TVET postings out, and don't touch our salaries, NDC MP says. A picture there, Agnes Na Mumu Lati. Page 3 has that story. Let's get into it. A member of the Minority Caucus in Parliament, Agnes Namumu Lati, is objecting to salary cuts for members of Parliament in the wake of measures by the government to trim spending amid the global economic crisis. According to her, the move would impinge on their pockets since NDC MPs, unlike their majority counterparts who obtain pecuniary benefits from their membership on boards of state corporations and agencies, have nothing other than their salaries. She goes on to say, last week, the government announced measures to save 50 million cedis, mainly through a public sector wage cut targeting its appointees to lower its deficit and address the current economic challenges facing the country. And it goes on and on. But in this instance, Na Latte is saying she would not accept, and in fact, she speaks here for the NDC MPs, the way she couched it, they would not accept any pay cut until the government stops its, quote, undue expenditure and accounts for funds it got in the name of COVID-19. I had here last week Al-Hassan Suini, a member of parliament for Tamale North, and he said something around these same lines, that he might be willing to give up portions of his salary, but the majority side must come clean. They must be candid on some of these bits. The likes of Okujatua Blakwa have said, we can do same, but how do we know it will not end up in more chop-chop, according to the way they see it. In other stories, it's been a while. Let's talk about Ukraine. No Russia regime change plans. That's according to Blinken, Secretary of State for the United States, who has denied that the United States has any plans to bring about regime change in Russia or anywhere else. Mr. Blinken's comments come a day after President Joe Biden said his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, should not be allowed to remain in power. The West is now calling for Putin to be axed, to be removed. But that's I wouldn't say it's foolhardy, but I would say it's going to be a tough call, looking at the clout that Vladimir Putin has in his own country. But when you look at the other side, there are a lot of people who have surprisingly expressed their discontent with Putin, his general management of the country. While he has yawning wide support, there are some people who have gone to the point of even resigning from his administration, leaving the country. There are a lot of Russians on the back of this. They didn't have to. Thousands, tens of thousands of them who have left the country in protest. Media people have left. Businesses are suffering. Of course, Putin has tried some countermeasures. For example, something that I find very interesting in the international political setup. He is now calling for, and I don't know whether this will be pushed through, Western countries who now purchase oil, gas, and more from them to pay in rubles and not in American dollars. And that is going to be, the power play is going to be in there. But when you look at the core dynamics, in the long term, medium to long term, some of these economic shocks will have a very biting effect on the Russian economy. Is that something the Russian people are willing to stand by, all for Putin and his views? Only time will tell. There's also been talk about Ukraine suspecting that basically the Russians are not going to advance much further, but they are going to divide the country practically in two. And we're going to have a situation like we have in the Korean Peninsula, North Korea, South Korea. There's going to be one part of Ukraine, per what we hear, that is going to be under Russian control directly or by someone imposed there to administer the region. Again, only time will tell. Also something that we've been following in recent times, China confirms no survivors in plane crash. And officials have confirmed that all 132 passengers and crew died when flight MU5735 crashed on Monday in southern China. The China Eastern flight was flying from Kunming to Guangzhou when it nosedived and crashed in a heavily forested area in Guangxi. Our hearts go out to China and to all of these people who have lost their lives, their families, of course. TECPE forcing strike at fiscal measures. And basically, they've been saying that this is much ado about nothing and that these measures will not achieve the desired effect. Arsenal plot Rashford capture. Marcus Rashford has not been himself this season, and Arsenal apparently is planning to swoop in and take him on. Go for AstroTurfs, a Black Ghana CEO tells clubs, and Kumasi went dead after Stars Super Eagles as stalemate. All of that in that paper. Let's check out some details from some other papers. The Daily Dispatch newspaper. Now, let me just get that. So, Dufour meets Greater Accra executives. Next stop, Volta and Ashanti regions. And reflections on running mate selection in Ghana's Fourth Republic. You can check out the details on page 3. Local government minister Dan Boche impressed with Kumasi compost recycling plant. And Zipline has made over 4 million medical deliveries since 2019. That's according to Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. And it is interesting because he mentions at a point in time that his father passed sometime many years ago, and if Zipline, the drone delivery service, had been available, maybe his father would not have died. So a good initiative, definitely. Ghana's first female Major General, Constance Ama Emefa Ejiani Apenu, laid to rest. You would recall that she passed in recent months, and she's finally been laid to rest. 1.765 billion Agenda 111 project is government's commitment to improve health sector. And yesterday, the president spoke about this as he delivered the 28th COVID-19 address. Obeda Samwa on Ghana's Third Republic. He's been sharing his thoughts, and of course, he's been talking to me in recent times. Some of those details are still here in the Daily Dispatch newspaper. And you can also check out the full text of the press conference by the Minister of Finance, Mr. Ken Oforiatta. That is also in the paper. Let's do the Herald newspaper, a paper that I've not done in a while, sometimes for specific reasons. But let's do it today. Papa Kwesi Ndum speaks from exile, trouble in NDC over missing 2.7 million Ghana cedis cash refunded by EC, non-performing boss blamed for constant fuel price increments. And so boss Tankasa, should have work like that. Tortua, Bobo. In this country, it is interesting, isn't it? Practically nothing works. We do everything, but nothing works. We don't have the right systems. Look at our stadium. Look at the Babayara Sports Stadium the other day. And another bit about people using certain entrances to get in, forcing their way through. When are we going to get things right in this country? 65 years after independence. When we talk like this, it's not that we are naysayers, but it's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing how, under different regimes, we simply can't get some of the basics, mere basics, right. It makes one's heart bleed. Ex-law school director indicts Attorney General for not informing him about appeals court nomination. Maxwell Opoku there, and his picture in the paper. I'm talking about Maxwell Opoku Ajiman. That's the full name. The last one just escaped me. That's it with the Herald newspaper. Before I get to the Business and Financial Times and wrap, let's do Republic Press. Silver Star Auto begins selling locally assembled Peugeot vehicles in Ghana. Peugeot vehicles in Ghana. Ghana records 266,000 abortions in 4 years. And get rid of deputy CEO positions, as Stephen Amwa tells government. He made this call on Newsfile and very forcefully spoke about the fact that some of these positions must be scrapped. And there's also been talk about merging some ministries, because it makes no sense having them, all with different portfolios, all with different budgets. We can merge them, slash budgets, and all of that. But sometimes, like some people have suggested, else why would we have so many? Sometimes it's all about the chop, isn't it? I don't mince words. Why would we have so many ministries? You have countries, big countries, huge countries. Well, you can say they have systems, and they have smaller groups of ministers. Here, we have all the ministers. And yet, ECOWAS hard on coup makers, and that is a thought on some of the stipulations that ECOWAS has imposed on coup makers. And leaders of ECOWAS made the decision, some of these decisions, during an extraordinary summit. And President of the ECOWAS Commission, Jean-Claude Cassibrou, said in view of the global political and security situation, there is an urgent need to reach an agreement in order to avoid further deterioration of the situation in Mali, for example. The BNFT now, reimposition of capital gains tax affecting equities market. That's according to the Bank of Ghana. Market responding favorably to recent monetary and fiscal measures. Already? It'll be interesting to know just how. That's on page 2 of the paper. It's time to rethink development and utilization of renewable energy. Francis Ekwamwa-Boateng says a new expenditure cut measures good signal for investors. Those are some economists speaking there. The very final one I will do is the Daily Statesman. Apiata reconstruction project takes off April ending. Borders open, face mask optional. President relaxes COVID-19 protocols. And there's Baumiak Commission's Sino-Hydro projects. There's also Caribbean tour. Prince William says future is for the people to decide. Reminds me of the situation with the Falkland Islands. But anyway, that's how we wrap the news review this morning. Hopefully you've got some insight into the biggest stories. But we have our big stories coming your way as we dilate on the 28th address by Mr. President and also hear from an academic, statesman, a man of very deep thinking on myriad matters. Ghana at 65, STEM education, UTAG conditions of service, the economy, e-levy, 60 years of medical education. Look forward to that one. It's an interaction with former Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana, Professor Ivan Adai-Mensah. Up next, though, we have sports coming your way. Do stay. Welcome back. We get into our big stories, and one of those matters we're going to be really looking into, the raft of measures as proposed by Mr. President in the 28th address. What does this really mean? Joining us is Papani. We'll be having some industry players join us, from movie producers to other people in the sector. But Papani Ashale joins us now. Papani, if you can hear me, where exactly are you, and what can you report on the back of the address yesterday by Mr. President?
Some people, we can tell that it's because of the bus stop just over there, because of the way the vehicles are stopping. That's why it creates some kind of jam when vehicles get to this side. So especially for those who are tenants, right,
to interact with some of them, who would share with me exactly that after 2 years of the land borders being closed, how did it impact them? How did it affect their businesses? And again, their travel between Ghana and that of Nigeria. So let me interact. Let me start here. My brother, what's your name?
My name The closure of the border affected me because some goods that we order is be seized from border because the door is not open. So because of that, some other businesses that we are doing, it makes slow. So then right now I hear that they opened it up. So I'm happy about it because now business will be moving the way it used to move before. So that's what I said. I'm happy.
So what he's saying is that first of all, he's happy it's been opened. But again, in that 2 years, the quantum of goods that used to flow between Nigeria through the border to where he works has really come down. But he's happy that probably he can smile at the end of the day. Let me come to you. Basma, what's your name?
My name is Pascal.
Okay, Pascal. So your brother mentions that the quantum of business he was doing came down. How about you? How did it affect you, the closure of the border?
It affected everywhere. It affected everybody. Because now you can't travel. You are facing many things in road. Because I hear say they have already opened the border. I'm very happy. For that. Thank you.
So for your business, what would this mean to you? Let's say before COVID-19, how often were you traveling between Nigeria and Ghana? And because of the
Well, we're going back to Papani, who is walking the streets of the Kwame Nkrumah Circle, getting some responses from ordinary Ghanaians on the back of this development. But let's go on Zoom now and interact with our guests, Dr. Fred Adumaku-Boateng, Bono East Director of Health, and Peter Sedufia, a movie producer. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on the AM show. Did I hear a response? I just want to be sure I have both of you.
Yes, good morning.
Is that Doc?
Yes, please.
Right. Can I hear from Peter Sedufia? Mr. Sedufia, are you with us? Right. Right. Okay, so I can hear from you, Mr. Sedufia. It's just unstable, patchy, I think because of the internet connection. So I'll start with Dr. Fred Adomako Boateng. Now, you are Bono East Director of Health. What is your initial response, quick reaction to these developments? I had interacted with Dr. Patrick Kumwabaje, Director General of the Ghana Health Service, on the back of calls for land borders to be reopened and all of that. We're finally there. Wearing of nose masks is no longer mandatory. It's now optional and all of that. What are your quick reactions to the 28th address by Mr. President?
I think it's what we were looking and waiting for. Remember when we had the discussion the other time, we were looking at the factors and then we're thinking, was it now the opportune time for us to go back to some of the policies that we have put down? I think that's where the discussion was. I quite remember even Director General came in and then also added his voice that, look, we are looking at all the possible factors and then appropriately we will take an action. So I think this is what we were looking for, looking at what is pertaining across the globe and also at the local level. And I think it came in timely.
What for you are the upsides, the most crucial measures that have been adopted? Is it, for example, at KIA and the easing or taking away of some of the tests? Is it about the reopening of the land borders? Does it have to do with the fact that people no longer have to observe full protocols when it comes to mask wearing and all of that? What is the most incisive one for you, or the most crucial one?
I think it's a package. Looking at the way COVID pandemic spanned out to be, you needed a multifaceted approach in addressing vis-a-vis closure of surrounding borders and also the measures that were put at the KIA. If you noticed, most of our cases were imported from abroad. And so the measures that were put in there was really to curtail the importation of COVID into the country. And also, if you look at the borders, the measures that were put there were also to curtail the importation of COVID to us. And the local measures also were trying to stop the prevention or the transmission if we had COVID in country. So if you look at all these factors and the measures that were put in place, I think that's what the president had come to address. And we know that, look, for all the cases, the local transmissions that we got for the country actually came from out. The need for us to wear gloves, to do social distancing, the need for us to stop some of our social gatherings that we're doing, were all informed by the number of cases that we're having. And so if you look at the holistic measures that we put in place and vis-a-vis what is happening globally, and we know in terms of vaccination, I think you come there. If you look at the vaccination rates for the global community, especially for the Western countries, they are far ahead of us. They are even thinking about second, third boosters. And then if you look at what we are having, so for you really to push measures to stop somebody who is doing well in terms of vaccination from coming there, I think that's where the discussions were. So I think that's what the task force together with the service had thought through, and then looking at the figures on the ground, that is what we are. I think the president had actually nailed the hammer on the head of the nail. And for us, some of us in Bunois, if you look at our figures and if you look at what was going on, I mean, most of our cases were imported from Accra and Kumasi. And so you see that in between the weeks, we were quiet. And therefore, we saw that the measures were really needed, especially when we had the surge coming on. So for us, this is what we have been waiting for. And I think the last time we had the discussion, we were talking about people actually not really wearing the mask as was supposed to. And the cost, look, if for consistent 1 month, you have been getting no case every day, you see the drive is not really there. If the cases are surrounding countries are also going down and then recording zero, and I think then those need of you locking the borders were not needed. And then the people who are coming in.
But Doc, we still have cases. We still have active cases. I mean, the numbers may have fallen, but we still have active cases. And especially considering that we have a new variant. In fact, a new strain of the Omicron variant, aka BA2, on the prowl, which it may not necessarily cause more sickness, but it is even more transmissible. And now with the reopening of our land borders and people who are going to be coming into the country from all angles, by air, by land, and all of that, and also taking away the mask wearing protocols, or saying, so to speak, that it is not mandatory. Already in your region, we have the experience. People were not using the masks. Now that you even say that it's not mandatory, I mean, looking at this pot of measures, are we not exposing ourselves?
I mean, we have to take it in context. For example, where we are even having the new variant forms coming, the level of vaccination, even to the extent of the booster, is way high above what you have now. So if you look at that dynamics, and therefore you don't want that person to come to your country, and then you see, it doesn't make academic or scientifically plausible thing to do. And we are not saying that we are going loose, free for all. No, he gave in the parameters. One of them, that the person coming in from these countries should be fully vaccinated.
Right.
It's one of them. So it's not like a blank check for everybody. Secondly, if you don't fall into that category, then you will have to provide the mandatory PCR test. And upon arrival, you will do the antigen. So it's kind of a double-edged sword to take into consideration people who are doing the things that they are supposed to do and the others. And then we also offer for people who have not been vaccinated. So these are all measures that has been put in place. So in also easing all these, he has also listed some measures that have been put in place. And we know, looking at the trajectory of how the pandemic has panned out, and I always talk about Bono East, we are always safe when Accra, Kumasi is safe. We are always safe when people coming from the outside arriving at KIA are safe. And in fact, we were proposing that, look, anytime we had surges in Kumasi, Accra, that we will just have to heighten the need for us to what? Go onto the mandatory.
Right. Quick one, Doc. Pardon the interjection, but I want to find out. On the back of all of these things we're saying, the vaccination cards, he says mass gatherings are back. You can do what you want, as many people as possible, like would have at a rally, at some other event, I mean, nightclubs and all of that. But the bit about checking vaccination cards, is that going to be as easy as we paint the picture? Is it a practical step? Because mind you, still millions have not been vaccinated. And he spoke about June this year so that we can meet the deadline. It appears we've been rolling over the deadline time and again. Of course, we've had our own challenges. But it's been rolled over again. Many millions of Ghanaians have still not been vaccinated. Now, some people have also not been vaccinated, but they have secured vaccination cards, okay, through fraudulent means. They are also in the system. And then the bit about expecting that at these mass events, there are going to be the appropriate checks to check everybody. Let's say 10,000 people are going for an event. To expect that all of them are going to be checked wherever the institution is. I mean, what are the dynamics there? What are the fears that we should be considering?
Solutions to it.
Hello, Doc.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, I lost you for a moment.
Okay, so I'm saying that the questions that you are posing are legitimate that I think we have to think through. But then we have to look at the dynamic nature of the circumstances that we are discussing. It comes back to people being responsible and being each other's keeper. You remember during the time that the president came with this mandate of mandatory mask wearing, and then a lot of people were saying that, look, the security forces should make sure they enforce it. People were coming to Ghana Health Service to say, look, you guys will have to enforce that. We were not enforcers. But I always was talking to my countrymen in Bunei East that, look at the police force in Bunei East. If they are supposed to stop other equally important duties of stopping crime, chasing other things, just for people to wear masks, then it means that we have not understood, and therefore we are not playing our part as citizens. Because look, this issue that we have is a collective idea and contribution. So if you are going to have an event, then the onus lies on you to make sure that people who are coming are actually vaccinated. Because look, when you do that, you are protecting yourself and you are protecting your community. That is the idea that we look at. Even as Joy FM now, somebody who is going to ensure that all of us are vaccinated. This issue of people getting fraudulent cards, it's not only here. You remember what happened in Germany, where they busted people who had the COVID card, which were faked ones. That's the human institution. But because of that, we stop living the life that we are supposed to. We need to put in mechanisms in place, all of us, and make sure. So me as a regional director, I will make sure that, look, if you are going to enter my premise, then you have to be vaccinated and show a proof. And
very quickly, as I move on to other guests, I just want to find out, how are you going to do that? What measures have you put in place that will enable you to do this, to do what you're saying?
Random checks, and then when people are expecting that at any point in time, people will look for. Look, let me tell you what can happen. I can just collect somebody's card, show it to you at the gate and enter. But whilst you are in, if we have random checks, look, let's look at all of us, our vaccination cards. Obviously, we'll be able to nab some people in the bad and then they are exposed. We should have mechanisms of the universities, you have to show. The schools, you have to show.
Okay.
And I like what the president said. If you are going to go for any visa application or go to any embassy for your visa and all, you have to show. Sports stadium, if you want to go and watch Kotoko and Haas, we should make sure that people show their card and also have a way of checking for them to see that you cannot beat. It's difficult.
Okay. All right.
It's become part of us. We'll be able to address it and then move on.
Doc, hold on for me briefly. Let me bring in Clement Boateng, First Vice at GUTA. Mr. Boateng, thank you so much for joining us. How happy are you? What is your reaction to the reopening of our land borders, easing of restrictions, especially at the KIA? How does GUTA react to the 28th address on COVID-19? Do we have Clement Boateng with us? Mr. Boateng, if you can hear me. All right, it appears we've lost Mr. Boateng. We'll try to reconnect with him. Let me bring in Peter Sedufia, a movie producer. Peter, hopefully the connection is better now. What is your quick response to the 28th address by Mr. President, especially concerning, generally, but also especially concerning your work in terms of the cinematic industry?
All right. Good morning. Good morning to your listeners and your viewers. As a matter of fact, it's a pleasure to hear that people are free to now go to the cinemas in their number, no restrictions, because that is what we've been waiting for. Of course, we are not, by saying that, we are not being selfish, because it's a global pandemic and we all need to put hands together in fighting it. So that's what we've done. And so if the time is right for us to get back to work and start earning our livelihood, it's just right that we'll be happy those bans have been lifted, especially on the cinema terrain, because you know that even the cinema we have does not have so much room for a lot of people to watch the film, which is already a problem for us. So to even slash it by an additional 50% is even grave. So now that the president says the cinema can take full capacity, it's the news that we welcome with open arms.
What are you going to do, especially as a movie producer, to ensure that while the numbers are accepted now, that you put in place certain control mechanisms so that, we're still in the midst of COVID-19. So we don't have to go back to the times we've been in where even cinemas were closed and all of that. The president did mention that mass gatherings accepted, but let's check vaccination cards and all of that. How are you going to be able to do that as a movie producer?
Well, for me as a movie producer, I want to be sincere with you. Hardly would I be able to check that thing. I can only advertise when I'm advertising my movie or when I'm promoting my movie that people should ensure to have their vaccination card or have their nose mask on because the mask gathering. The cinema is responsible to ensure those things are, because it's their space, so it becomes their responsibility to ensure that those vaccination cards are on the patrons. And so they have to, and I know that for several cinema, for instance, I've been there a couple of times. They've already had systems in place to even trace people, to make sure that people are wearing the nose mask, make sure people write down their names when they enter the cinema, just for contact tracing purposes. They make sure people sanitize the washroom, everything has sanitizer. So I'm sure that just ensuring that people are wearing, are having vaccination card is not going to be an ideal task compared to what they were doing previously. So I think this will either be the easiest for them or one of the easiest for them. And I'm sure they are up to task. But for me as a producer, I can only put that in my campaigns that people should ensure, so that's the public awareness or the education, that people should ensure to have their vaccination card with them before going.
Right. Peter, I was speaking more from the standpoint, I understand that the cinemas will have to do the job when it comes to people entering those locations. But I was talking more about your work as a movie producer. As you go about producing your movies, are you going to be ensuring that people are meeting certain criteria when it comes to the protocols? Yes,
I get your point.
Mask wearing has been taken off. It's basically, it's not mandatory. But what are you going to be doing to ensure that even from set, people are doing the right thing?
We've been ensuring already on set that people are doing the right thing. They are in their nose mask when they are not. To be honest, when an actor is talking to another actor, they will not be wearing nose masks. They have to take off their nose masks and talk. So we are already in that practice for quite some time now when the first restrictions were lifted for us to get back to work. And so this additional vaccination information is just something that we would try to ensure our actors and crew live up to. Of course, some of them are vaccinated. For me, for instance, I've vaccinated, taking my 2 shots, and even taking the booster. So, there are a lot of other people that have also gone through the same process. There are others that have not gone through the same that process. So, they will be encouraged to wear their nose mask. And I've not read anywhere that it's now mandatory to vaccinate. I cannot force them to go get a vaccination card.
But are you going to consider encouraging them? Are you going to consider encouraging them to get vaccinated, because that also protects you, protects other people who may be vulnerable? Are you going to at least suggest?
Yes, we will have a conversation with them. We've seen some of the people that have vaccinated, some that have not vaccinated, and we just encourage people that it's not just about you; it's about the next person next to you. Probably you don't care that you get the virus. How about the person that next to you that may care that they may get a virus? You just infect an innocent person. So we encourage them to get a vaccination. Nonetheless, we cannot force them to do that. So if you are not vaccinated, we just have to make sure that you are always with your nose mask, you are always sanitizing, and you are always following the precautions or the directives to ensure that it do not endanger another person's life. But we are doing our best to make sure that all our cast and crew get vaccination. Like I said, we cannot force them. We can only impress upon them and appeal to their conscience to do that for the safety of every other person around them.
Right. Right before I go back to Mr. Boateng and Doc as well, I'd just like to find out from you. We've got to the point where these measures at a point became very necessary. If the numbers go up again, and we have to go back, for example, whether a lockdown situation, I mean, this is just hypothetical, or get back to the restrictions, how would you receive that?
Okay, so anyway, because of the pandemic, a lot of us, or a lot of my fellows have also devised other ways to still continue making films irrespective of the restrictions in place. And so we've devised new ways to do that. So if there's another restriction, we are just simply going to move to the new ways that we develop. Of course, for now, we are combining both the old ways and the new ways. And so if there's a need to go back to the new way alone and ignore the old ways, I think we are ready. It's the first time it's happened, we are not ready for it. We have already been used to a certain way of doing things, certain system of doing things. And so when that system was blocked, we became so stranded and very confused and frustrated. But with time, we adopted, and then we devised other means to still go about the same activity. And so now that the restrictions have been lifted fully, we are going to be combining our new ways that we've learned plus the old ways that we are used to. And if the restrictions come again, we'll just ignore or abandon the old ways and stick to the new ways. So I think for now, yes, I would say that we are more or less prepared for any eventuality. Of course, unless another pandemic that we have not experienced before, that will also more or less affect the new ways that we have. Then we will find a way to develop another new way to counter it.
All right. You'll definitely have to improvise. Mr. Peter Sedufia there, a movie producer. Peter, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Let me now bring in Dr. Kwame Sapong-Esio, the research fellow with the CDD. What's your quick reaction to yesterday's 28th address? Land borders open, mask wearing not mandatory, and maybe the bit about meeting our vaccination target of 20 million by June, another extension. Quick reactions to those.
Thanks, and good morning. My quick reaction is this. I mean, in any disease state, the problem for public health managers is the link between infection, hospitalization, and death. Once that link is established, health managers have to do something about it. And that is why you have things like social distancing and other things coming in. So at the onset, that came in. Then the next level becomes, what else can we do to break this, which might be either treatment or vaccinations. So when treatments came in, they were not as effective. So link wasn't broken. There was a high probability that if you got infected, you get hospitalized, and unfortunately, you could get severely ill and die. Now we have vaccines, and that link has been broken. I mean, there's data from close to 13 billion doses to show that that link has been broken. And therefore, it has become non-prudent to use what we call, restrictive measures on their own to control the pandemic, because the balance has to be between the public health measures and the economic implications. At this point, the balance is tipping more towards the economic implications. Because I tell you what, no one would close a country because malaria exists, neither would they do it because yellow fever or typhoid exists, because there are treatments, there are vaccinations for them. So for me, the president making that announcement was spot on. What we are left with now is to ensure that the dynamics that ensures that that link is broken are implemented, and that's our vaccination. And so for me, the challenge the Ghana Health Service has now that the president has made this announcement is how to ensure that the 20 million people are vaccinated, not just that, but knowing that immunity wanes after about 6 months, to ensure that boosters can be efficiently employed so that our population immunity is high. Because if our population immunity drops, then you have the added implications of imported infections, especially with our land borders open. So that's my quick reaction.
We have BA2 on the prowl, a strain of the Omicron variant, with this free-for-all that has been given us, and with a call to check vaccination cards. How practical is it? I mean, are we going to be able to do this?
And I've always said the strains of viruses would always come. I mean, as we speak now, there's a new strain of the flu virus. They would always come. The point is, are the vaccines efficient and effective against them? The information suggests it is. I mean, the new strain was isolated in the UK and in Germany. But the UK is totally opened up now. Why? Because when people get infected, it's not impacting on hospitalization, it's not impacting on severe disease, and it's not impacting on mortality, unless, of course, you have underlying conditions. And we've come to the point where human beings have to be prudent as well by knowing that, yes, the president might have said face masks are not mandatory, but if you're vulnerable or you've not been vaccinated, or even if you've been vaccinated, it may be prudent to wear your face mask. We've gotten to the point where public health common sense must determine what we do and what we do not. So much as I have issues with, we would check vaccination study, because I've raised my hand and say, I've been in Ghana, I've come for a number of funerals. Even so, I am not going to dwell on them. But I say, if you know you're not vaccinated, you have a high probability, because for you, the link between infection and mortality still exists. And you have the high probability that that might lead to hospitalization and death.
Right.
So be sensible and wear your face mask.
Let me go to Clement Boateng, first vice of the Ghana Union of Traders Association. Clement, how did you receive the news yesterday? Joy?
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for having me. Yeah, I think when the news broke up, it was very welcoming and refreshing, since most or some of our members, are engaged in this land border trade or cross-border trade. When the borders was closed, I think almost 2 years ago, it brought a very, negative impact on those of our members who are engaged in this cross-border trade. But we also know that the borders were closed as some of the measures, to contain this pandemic. So we had no option but to wait till this time that the president, has lifted this closure of the borders. I think it's a welcome news. We are all aware that for some time now, some of the people, living on this border areas, have gone on, demonstration, because they also, depend on the commercial activities that happens on this borders. So reopening of the borders is a welcome news. It's very refreshing, and those of our members who are engaged on this cross-border activities, they will really enjoy it, and then we think their businesses will come back to normal once again.
Do you have any concerns? For example, now the wearing of masks is not mandatory and all of that. Are you concerned in any way? I mean, because if there's another spike, we might end up, regressing or going back to some of those stringent measures. Do you have any fears or concerns on that?
I think we are all aware that most countries, have begun, relaxing or reviewing some of these protocols. And I think those also advising the president thought it wise that it's about time that this mask should be made mandatory. It shouldn't be mandatory. But I think, in my own opinion, I would have wished that at least wearing of this mask should have, continued till the end of the year. By that time, then we will be in the position to know the exact situation of the pandemic. It is true that it is going down, and that is the more reason why countries are beginning to relax or review the protocols. But in my own opinion, I would have wished that it should have been continued to the end of the year.
They should have been continued to the end of the year. My final bit to you, Mr. President says he hopes these measures will help to create jobs. Do you think it will result in those?
Definitely, because like I told you, people, living around those areas do have some, commercial activities that they depend on. And since these borders were closed, all those commercial activities came to a halt, thereby, I would say, leading to no job creation. So once it has been reopened this time around, all those businesses are going to come back. So a lot more people are going to get jobs, and I think it will be good for them.
Clement Boateng, thank you so much for joining the conversation. We're grateful that you joined the conversation. I'm going to wrap with Dr. Sapong Asiedu and Dr. Adomako Boateng. But I'll start with you, Dr. Adomako Boateng. So a pointed question to both of you. Now we are where we are. People were calling for this. We have them now. What do we do moving forward to protect ourselves, to protect our country? What do we do? I'll start with you, Dr. Adomako Boateng.
Thank you. This is the time that we have to really lift up our vaccination campaign. I mean, prevention, as we say, is better than cure. And from the lessons that we have learned from COVID, the best option, looking at human limitation, is the vaccination. So I think all of us will have to come on deck and then begin to make sure that we sound this for almost everybody to hear, that looking at what we have gone through, the best option now is for vaccination. So if those of us who have not been vaccinated, this is the right time for us to go for the vaccines. That is what I would say.
All right. So a quick top up, and I hope Dr. Sapong Asiedu will be brief as well. A quick top up. So just to break it down, our vaccination rate stands at 16% now. Is it prudent that, especially considering we're nowhere near herd immunity, is it prudent these reactions? Just to get a recap of what you said. It appears we don't have Dr. Adomako Boateng. Do we have?
Oh, I'm on. Okay,
that was directed at you, actually.
Oh, okay. So that's what we are looking at. And these measures are taken looking at holistic factors. We are looking at maybe 28 days after the huge surge. We are looking at the rate of transmission with a gauge of looking at Greater Accra and Kumasi. And other regions. We are looking at where we import the cases from, and then that will sustain the local transmission.
Right.
When you look at all these factors, I would say that that is the right decision to take.
Okay.
And then not only taking that decision.
Very briefly now.
Are dynamic.
Right.
There is a need for vigilance.
Right.
And looking as you implement. That is what I would say.
Doc, thank you so much for your time. Dr. Fred Adomako Boateng, Bono East Director of Health, speaking to us. Let's wrap with Dr. Kwame Sapong Asiedu. Your final bite on those self-same issues as we wrap in just about a minute, if you can manage it.
We are where we are. You need to be vigilant. The president has made the political health decision. Now you need to make the prudent personal decision around self-protection, self-preservation, and vaccination. And you need to positively affect those around you to ensure that they get vaccinated. That is the only way around it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kwame Sapong Asiedu, research fellow with the CDD. And that is our conversation on this bit. We'll go back to Michael Ashale, Papani, as we call him, from the streets of Circle. Papani, if you can hear me, what are people's reactions?
How about you? How did it affect you, the closure of the border?
It affect everywhere. It affect everybody because now you can't travel. You can't travel. You are facing many things in road because I hear say they have already opened the border. I'm very happy. I'm very happy for that. Thank you.
So for your business, what would this mean to you? Let's say before COVID-19, how often were you traveling between Nigeria and Ghana? And because of the closure, how did it also impact that travel?
The part of the travel is most of all these company motor, where some people that have their park inside, even GIG, God is good, and GUO, God is great, and all these Shisco. They affect us because they are not traveling again. Even to bring goods from Nigeria to here is very hard. But we praying if this thing can, like the way they open the border, if it's true, everybody is everybody can laugh.
So let me ask again. So what do you trade in here in Ghana?
Well, I'm into phone accessories.
So say before COVID-19, how much were you making? I mean, given the number of goods that you also getting?
Before COVID-19, I've been making a lot. But after this, let's say because of this border, things are hard to go and bring goods and bring it here. The money is supposed to buy the goods. The transportation is very costly than the money you buy the goods. You see, so that's why.
So Pascal is also one happy Nigerian that finally the land borders have opened. Chief, what's your name?
My name is Mr. Austin Emmanuel.
Austin Emmanuel. So, Austin, you've been very vociferous about this, that well, you are finally happy. You think that it's taking too long to be open?
It took more than a long interval of time, starting from the year 2020 to 2022. It was very, very outrageous to us, especially the businessmen, because the movement was interfered with. There is no longer fast movement based on going to Nigeria, going to Togo, going to Mali, all these countries to import goods. This affected us, actually. Recently, I traveled to Nigeria. It was a very dangerous experience. Traveling with my wife and the family with a flying boat. What if the boat sink? It will be a dangerous story to me and the family. So the closure of border affected even every living soul in West Africa. It affected all. Because normally, I don't base on only accessory business. You can go to Nigeria, bring clothes, you bring it here, you sell. When the exchange is good here, you can bring things here. When it is good in Nigeria, you can go to Nigeria and buy. But this thing clashed everything. Everything was crashed. And that is, I think, this contributed to 100% of the hardship in Nigeria and Ghana. Even the president and all these, our politicians, they know. Because normally, even ordinary layman, an average man can travel to Nigeria with 1,000 cedis and he can buy things. Depends on the exchange rate. But this closure of border crashed everything. So many of us, our passports expired. Not that we cannot travel again, but they closed border. So you can't travel to renew it. But as they have opened the border, I think yesterday it was a glorious news to every citizen, both Ghana and Nigeria. So I really appreciate it.
So in terms of the quantum of items that you were selling, how much you were going to bring and stuff, I mean, before COVID-19, how did that look like? How did that business look like?
COVID is a mess. COVID is a serious mess. Before this COVID of 18 and the closure of a border, we're bringing more than excess. Because the border was free. That time you take company cars, GUO, Ego, some other company cars. There was no disturbances so far as you're having passports. But now it's like a smuggling way. It's like you are smuggling goods. So it was a risk. And as a result of that, considering the risk of customs service, immigration, and all these things. So you can go there with only your bag. For someone like me, I stopped bringing anything. Because in a situation whereby you'll be arrested by a custom officer or an immigration officer. So considering the expenses and the profit you are making, I have to stop everything. That is the truth.
Emmanuel, I'll come back and ask you how we can make the experience for you better in Ghana, especially after the opening of the border. Let me go back to Chinedu. So Chinedu, what do you also trade in?
Me, I'm a food vendor. So food. So for me, I see the thing my brother was saying. is the way the thing is. So me, I don't have nothing much because my goods, they don't bring in from Nigeria, from Ghana, yeah, from Kumasi, yeah, sometimes.
But have you traveled home in these 2 years?
No, I've not traveled.
And that's because the border was closed?
But some people that traveled, so I've heard news about how they risk their life from from water, because some people take a flying boat. So me, I've never traveled.
Traveled in because of it was closed. But now that it's open, are you looking at traveling home?
If I can travel, maybe like from now 2 years in time or this year. So I can travel.
Wonderful. Chinedu, let me go back here. Boss, are trying to wrap up. So how can we better the experience now that the borders are open? It's going to be a mad rush, definitely. But since you've been using that, what advice would you say that probably we should put this in place, making the experience between crossing the border into Ghana a much better experience?
The experience that let them bring all some, because now from Aflawo to Accra, they are warriors. Even the money we are using before from Aflawo to Accra, you can pay 45 cedi. But now I took 2.5. Day before yesterday I came back. They collect 2.5 from me. 2.5. It's too much. It's too much.
So what does you want us to do about it? Is it the transport fares or the monies that you have to hand over to some other people whilst you are making this journey?
The transport fare. Okay. The transport fare, let it be the same price they be before. And all this now money, to change money to Naira to cedis, it's very costly. People cannot send money again because everything is very high. Let them bring everything in order. They open the border. Let them do everything together.
Thank you very much. Let me wrap up with Emmanuel. So, Emmanuel, your brothers have spoken to me. He says that the exchange rate and the cost of transportation. I mean, aside the opening of the border was good news, that's going to be another big blow to his business. So, how better should the experience be once that we've opened the border? What do you expect?
As they have opened the border, I think things are going to normalize again. Based on me, the time I used to travel, I picked direct car. So when I reach Aflo, they'll just check my documents. If I'm eligible to cross, I cross. So now, I think things have come back to normal. No longer hiding, passing through the bush, passing through the water. I think all these are risks. Now you just pick a company car here. You pay your money that is required from you. So far as your passport is okay, you will go to your place. So I think it's a very good thing. I'm very, very happy. Forget the monetary issue. Life.
And that was Michael Papani Ashali, my colleague from the streets of Circle. We take a bit of a breather, and when we return, we have our interaction with former Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ghana, Professor Ivan Adaimensa. We'll be right back. Hello Ghanaians, welcome aboard. Playing on words. Well, we continue with the AM show as we have an interaction on matters of national concern with a former Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ghana and a statesman as well, Professor Ivan Adaimensa. He shares his thoughts on Ghana at 65, U-tax, conditions of service, education generally in our country, the economy, the e-levy, and more. Stay with us.
Yeah.
Is it any better than, let's say, a year and a half, 2 years ago that we spoke? Is free SHS delivering the goods, so to speak?
I don't think so. Frankly, I don't think so. You know, I've had my own ideas about free SHS since 2012. And I made my ideas known to the current president. At that time,
since basically when he started talking about the fact
when he started talking about
should he be given the nod, he would do this.
Yes, right? And I took the opportunity to go and have a chat with him. He put me in touch with his committee that was working on the policy. I had a lot of discussions with them. Unfortunately, my ideas were said to be incompatible with the president's objectives. I have no quarrel with that. Unfortunately, 2012, he didn't succeed. He came in 2016, and then with a few modifications here and there, started implementing it. But I still had the view that the way it was being implemented was going to create a lot of problems, challenges, not only for education itself, but even in the general economy of the country. I felt that the way it was being implemented, it was unsustainable. And at that time, you know, I came under a lot of flack. But it's interesting that some of those people who thought what I was saying was too far-fetched are now the same people who are singing the song that I was singing, or I have been singing since 2012. Which was what? That let those who can afford pay. And whatever they contribute will go a long way in helping those who really, genuinely need help. I don't see why, if I were in a position to send children to school or grandchildren to school, I don't see any reason why government should pay for the food that my grandchild or my child should eat in a boarding school. I don't see any reason why that should be the case.
So it's a futile initiative.
It's a futile. To me, it's a drain on the economy. Secondly, several studies in various places have shown that where those who can pay, enough revenue is always generated to benefit those who genuinely need support and help. If what they pay is put in a sort of basket and invested, and invested to give a sort of scholarship or bursary scheme to those who genuinely need to have it. The finance minister had a similar idea at the beginning of this program. I don't know whether he still holds on to the same idea, but maybe he's now been beaten to conform with the president's own ideas. But he had similar ideas to what I had. And I'm happy to know that now people are beginning to think in the same direction.
So you're talking about proper targeting. I've heard people say, for example, recently on some of our shows on JoyNews that, look, I can take care of my children. Why are you paying their fees? Why are you paying for all of these other things? It should rather be other people who cannot foot these bills, just like you're saying, that should have to, you know, benefit from the program. In terms of a review proper, some inkling, some idea has been given to that. And some of the very people you are suggesting back then said, no review, are now saying, let's review it. We are pumping about 7.5 billion cedis every year into this enterprise. Some say it is a drain on the coffers of government because we're already in dire straits in terms of our economy. Do you feel vindicated now that we've got to the point where we are considering a review of free SHS?
Certainly, I feel vindicated, not necessarily because it is as a result of it we are now getting problems with our economy, but I think that it would have been the wisest thing to do right from the beginning, because it was obvious right from the beginning that we could not have afforded what we instituted. It was not possible to put all that money. You know, we said we were going to depend on oil revenue. And as I've said, that was not the objective of the utilization of oil revenue from the beginning. We said we were going to invest some money in the oil, some money from the oil revenue into education, but that was not in the way we were doing it. We wanted to use the oil revenue to equip schools so that they will be up to speed with modern trends. Schools really need facilities. Primary schools, junior secondary schools, or junior high schools the tertiary level, they need equipment, they need facilities, they need consumables. That's where the money should have gone to, not on consumption in the way it is being done. That has been my beef all this while.
And there are others. You've spoken about your influence, your work when it comes to the PIAC, for example, the Public Interest and Accountability Committee. A former chair of PIAC, Dr. Steve Mantea, has indicated that we should set up an investment fund to cater for free SHS. What do you think about that? Is that one of the solutions?
Yes, it matches with what I just said. What we had envisaged the investment of oil revenue into education for. You set up a fund, and that fund can be accessed for specific things, including the award of scholarships at the level of senior high school, at the level of university, and even at the level of the primary and junior high school system. And it could also be accessed for the supply of facilities, equipment, and consumables to all the schools. Go to some of the senior high schools. Laboratories don't exist. You find a lot of the schools are not able to run the so-called STEM or STEAM projects that we are beginning to envisage. We are doing all that by word of mouth without necessarily providing the necessary facilities that will make sure that, in fact, the policy is working. And we are in the university. We are the end receivers of the end product from the senior high school level. And when they come, they know next to nothing, not because they are stupid, but because they have not had the opportunity to come face to face with the practicalities of what they ought to have learned at the senior high school level.
The fundamentals have been problematic.
Yes, and even at the junior high school level. Junior high school level, they are supposed to do some hands-on practical work, even in the sciences. It's not happening. It's happening in very few schools. That is even reflecting in the sort of people that are getting into the high-profile courses like medicine and engineering. You find that it's only a few schools which are very well equipped, and the well-equipped schools, it's not because of what government is sending to them. Mostly it's from the schools, old students and PTAs. They are the people supporting the schools. If you take my own former school, Achimota School, after the colonial people built the science laboratories, all the science laboratories that have sprung up in Achimota School have been built by private sources. When I was a student, we had Shell Ghana, building a physics and a chemistry laboratory for the school. No laboratory was built until recently when GNPC also built a modern state-of-the-art laboratory for the school. They haven't seen any laboratory from government. So you can imagine what is happening in the schools that don't have the clout to access some of these private initiatives. You can imagine what is happening there.
Right. And since you started off that conversation, but before we get into the bit about, because it's 60 years of medical education in Ghana, but and since you started off there, we just might segue into that. But before I go there, what would be your assessment? Again, I'd like to do this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how successful has free SHS been? Looking at the pluses and the minuses on a scale of 1 to 10.
I must be frank. When it comes to its effect on quality of education, I won't give it anything more than 4.
In terms of quality of education?
I won't give it anything more than 4, probably less. If anything at all, it has lowered the standard of education. It has increased numbers. There is no doubt about that. But increase in numbers is not increase in quality. I'm very frank about that.
And that's a point people made right from the outset, that
exactly.
you can increase the quantity, but the quality.
The quality.
And that has not been...
And to me, quality is very, very important. I wouldn't say quantity is not important. Of course, if you give everybody the chance to have a brush with some form of education higher than where they would normally have been, it is a plus. I wouldn't say that that is wrong. But when you produce people who, after going through school for 10 years, can't even spell their own names, can't speak a sentence of English correctly, and I'm afraid it goes all the way from the lowest level, even to our universities, and I will not mince any words on this, even up to our universities. I wouldn't say that quality has improved. If anything at all, quality is going down, down, down.
So what should we do about free SHS? Very briefly on that, so we can talk about medical education. What should we do to better it in the short term?
I think, honestly, as a nation, we should think about the free SHS. It's a very good idea. In principle, it's a very good policy. Without some form of free education, in particular, I wouldn't be sitting here.
Right.
What was done during the First Republic, I wouldn't be sitting here. But we have to sit down as a nation, not as a political party, as a nation, and rethink how best we can run the scheme such that we can have a win-win situation.
So political parties come together, technocrats, people with the know-how like you come together, let's brainstorm, let's plan some trajectory for the country, educationally speaking, and stick to it, regardless of which party is in power.
Exactly. Exactly. And we shouldn't just bury our heads into the sand like ostriches and say that because this is my flagship program, it's untouchable. Any thinking in that line is going to create more problems as we go on, both financially and socially. It's about time we sat down and looked. I've been hearing comments from some reliable sources that it's being said that it's a no-go area, we're not going to touch it. Others are saying, oh, it's one of the things government will want to reform.
It's been said recently that the 16 flagship programs, from 1D1F to Planting for Food and Jobs to Free SHS to whatever, they want to look at them again. If that turns out to be true, would it be welcome news?
It will be, but it will also depend upon how it is handled. Okay. But this morning I also heard from some other station that it was being mentioned that Free SHS is untouchable. But I am praying and hoping that it will be touchable. And the way it will be touched will not be partisan, that it will be all-embracing, and people will be prepared to listen to different ideas so that we all come out with what will work and work well for the country, not for one faction's objectives.
Right.
For the country as a whole, especially for the future of our youth. And I'm very concerned about that. The future of our youth is at stake at the moment, and we have to do something about it.
Speaking about the youth, 65 years of independence and 60 years of medical training in Ghana.
Yeah.
And of course, we can talk about engineering as well. How far have we come? How well have we fared? And what are the gray areas we ought to be looking at when it comes to medical education and even the kinds of participation? And when I say participation, I mean which entities are producing the products that are funneling into our medical schools, for example. Has it become predominantly the reserve of some schools, for example? How well have we fared in ensuring that across the board, someone in Bumpurugu Yoyo can also benefit? What is your take on that?
You have really brought up a very, very interesting and a very wide topic. Professor Clifford Tego and I have been studying this situation. You know, he was Dean of the Medical School, Provost of the College of Health Sciences, and Vice Chancellor. I had the privilege of being a classmate of the first batch of medical students, and then I taught some medical students in their first years, and then I became head of the university, Vice Chancellor, looking at policies regarding the medical school. In fact, it was during my term of office that the school was turned into a College of Health Sciences. So it's an area that I've been following for a very long time. And we have studied the school of origin of medical students into our medical schools in KNUST and University of Ghana from 1999 to 2020. We have the statistics for all that. We've also done a bit of work on engineering, but that's not what I'm going to talk about. And we've done very, very well in terms of the numbers and quality of training that we have brought about in our two flagship medical schools. We've done very well when it comes to quality. When it comes to study of medicine being a vehicle for social mobility, that is where I have problems, or I have concerns. I should say I have concerns. At the last count, we are supposed to have 720 senior high schools in the country. For example, for the period 2012 or 2013 to 2020, a period of 8 years, we have admitted, say, 1,272 students to, say, University of Ghana Medical School. We have admitted similar numbers to KNUST School of Medical Sciences. Of those number of students admitted, they come from just about 110 schools, which means there are 610 schools in this country which have never sent a medical student, a student to our two medical schools for the past 8 years.
Some would even say that the secondary schools are as many as 800. So when you look at it in that perspective,
well,
it means
then
it's even wider.
Worse. It's even wider.
And even when you look at the 110 or so that you're saying, I'm sure within the 110 bracket, there are fewer ones.
I'm coming to that.
Right.
I'm coming to that. Let's take the University of Ghana Medical School. From 2013 to 2020, the 1,272 students. The first 5 schools, that is Wesley Girls High School, Presec, Achimota, Mfansipim, Holy Child, and Prempe bracket in the 5th position. These 5 schools alone have produced 50% of the medical students. 50%. And 18 schools have produced more than 75% of the students in our medical school. It means the remaining 25% goes to the 80-something other schools, which have managed to send at least one student in the last 8 years.
So you would see maybe one student every 3 years,
yeah, exactly.
2 students here and there. Very irrelevant number.
Your own school, Bishop Herman,
right,
which is not, which is one of the top schools in the country.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. It ranks number 34.
34
on the list of schools that have supplied students to the medical school.
Right.
You know the number of students you have sent to the medical school? 4 in the last 8 years.
Wow.
1 every 2 years. And yet you are 34th on the list.
And there's 110 of them.
110.
So it tells you that some schools have maybe produced just one.
One for the 8 years.
And throughout the period.
And as I said, over 600 have produced none.
Dr. Sena Akabwa comes to mind. When I was leaving school, he was senior prefect back then, and he went to medical school.
And if you take the top two, Wesley Girls High School, I'm not begrudging them that. It's an excellent performance that they have put up. But the number of students from Wesley Girls High School is more than double the number of students from the second school, Presec. Wow. 262 students in the last 8 years, as opposed to 127 students from Presec. And then 98 from Achimota, 97 from Vancipim,
right.
And then 41
the tie between Holy Child and Prempeh.
And Prempeh. And you know the type of JHS students who go to these schools and their social background. That's where my worry comes from.
Why these yawning disparities? Does it start from the JHS level, or is it the failure at the SHS level?
No,
because sometimes you can have a student up north in some school or some part of the country very deprived, yet given the right opportunities, they can rub shoulders with those from these schools, but the opportunities are simply not there.
It used to happen, if you look at our figures, it used to happen during the time that Legon, for example, used to admit all the students into the sciences in the first year.
Right.
And then they compete. And then at the end of their first year, on the basis of their performance at the level 100, they are then selected into the medical school. The spread during that time was a little better. The trends were virtually the same, but it was a little better. But the factors or the reasons are many. Apart from the JHS that they attend, which of course dictates the type of SHS they attend, which determines whether they will get into the medical school or not. These are all factors that, and then the facilities in the schools that they attend. I told you just during the early part of the interview that there are schools that have no laboratories. Now, if you have no laboratories, you can't do science. If you don't do science, you cannot get into the medical school. It's as simple as that.
How do we fix, how do we remedy the
Let's
problem?
strengthen the facilities in the schools. I wouldn't
we seem to be
for
content with National Science and Math Quiz, and we won, and all of that.
Exactly.
But in terms of the relevance, the feel on the ground, and I'm not denigrating that quiz and all of that. It's a wonderful thing. I mean, bragging rights and all of that. But the practicality, how do you ensure that practically it's look at Cuba, for example.
Yeah.
And how they have harnessed, medicine and their doctors, even in our very own country. Exactly. They've been coming time and again.
Exactly. I wouldn't say that anybody who has a aggregate 12, 14 cannot cope with medical education.
They can.
They can. But we have had situations like 2012, when KNUST had to go as low as taking aggregate 6 with 8 A1s into the medical school.
That was the lowest.
That was the aggregate 6 means you had 6 A's out of the 8 subjects.
Right.
But even the 6 A's, there were too many people to meet the requirements. They wanted about 200 people, and there were about 700 people with aggregate 6. So they had to come down to aggregate 6 with A in all the 8 subjects. And that also gave them about almost 600 students. And so they had to then conduct an interview. And that year, Wesley Girls had 96 students with aggregate 8 A1s. 8 A1s, aggregate 6 with 8 A1s, followed by St. Augustine's with 53 students. So naturally, the number of students that went to the medical school that year reflected that sort of average.
Right.
And the schools that didn't have aggregate 6 with 8 A1s, yeah, you were non-competitive. You wouldn't even come on the computer.
When it does not mean that these people...
It doesn't mean that they are stupid.
So what do? Do we, just like with law, do we then broaden our medical system, maintain the quality, hold the quality at a certain level, but broaden it so that others more can get in? Because in fact, when you look at UN standards, we have a deficit when it comes to doctor to patient ratio, a wide deficit.
So it's a good idea that now we have UHAS in Ho. I'm
the
still
University for Health and Allied Sciences.
I've been in touch with Professor Japon, the Vice Chancellor. He is collating and compiling the list of the background for the background of students going into that school. We are also trying to get figures from Tamale. We are trying to get figures from Cape Coast. Now there are also some 2 private medical training institutions in the country. We may need to broaden it, just as we've done for law. Of course, there's another demon anyway. But at least there are more people who have the chance of studying law, if even they don't have the chance to do it right at the beginning of their university education. We may have to look in that direction. But I think, honestly, that strengthening facilities in the schools is the most important. And that you cannot do relying on government subvention alone.
Okay.
We have to look at other ways and means of facilitating funding going into the schools. If it will even mean declaring some of the schools as autonomous, but insisting that they have some quota system or scholarship system to be able to admit people from lower income groups or from deprived areas into those schools, so that they can also benefit from the good facilities in these schools. I'll be all for that.
Okay. Now that we're talking medical education, we've had the focus on STEM, and now some say STEAM. So traditionally science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and now others add the arts in there to make it STEAM rather than STEM. The government has started some initiatives when it comes to STEM education, the STEM high schools and all of that. What do you make of that? Is that one of the ways we can use to solve the problem, plug the loopholes when it comes to science education?
This is a typical example of how we start schemes just for the novelty of it.
Just for the novelty of it?
Without thinking through the implications. Here we are with a situation where almost 800 schools, as you have said, don't seem to have the wherewithal to produce the sort of quality that we want. Instead of investing in improving the quality in these schools, we are not going to start new schools from scratch without making use of the schools that already exist. We're going to build new structures so that we can show people that when we came, we built A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 schools called STEM schools. I mean, there was a time when they started proper sixth-form science schools with Presec as the first one, where even girls could come and do science in Presec. My own daughter, who is an engineer, came and did her sixth form from Wesley Girls at Presec because she wanted to take advantage of that particular scheme.
Wow.
Which means these things can be done within the existing schools to strengthen them. That singular action that was taken in Presec is what made Presec what it is now. So to me, building new structures is not the answer.
Pouring in more money when you could have funneled that into...
When you can't even equip those new structures. You may bring in fresh, new equipment, but with scientific equipment, maximum 5 years, they are obsolete. You have to replace. And that's where the problem begins. And apart from bringing the equipment, consumables, it is a matter of monthly You have to be supplying consumables monthly, constantly, to maintain the same standard. And we don't do that in this country. So as for me, well, it is nice to see all these things on paper. But if how they are going to implement it, as they have said now, is the same as what it will be at the end of it, then I don't have much hope. You can call me a naysayer, but I think that if we concentrate on the schools that we have now and make them functional, make them viable, and make them produce quality, we'll be doing far, far better.
I mean, we have schools that we even categorize as science-oriented schools,
exactly.
like my school,
yes.
like the Archibald's and the rest. So why not focus on them? They may be, let's say, 200 out of the 700 and something. Focus on those.
Focus on those. Focus on those. If now we have only 100 sending students to the medical school, and 50 of them are producing one student for the 8 years, and you are able to raise that number to 200 schools with about 150 producing even 2 students every year to the medical school. Look at the number of students or medical students that we will be able to produce in this country, and the number of doctors that we can train.
The other angle of all of this, while we talk about the doctors and lawyers and all of that, technical and vocational training, essential to any country's development. When you look at TVET, how have we handled the situation? What are we missing out on? Because it appears that what should be the backbone of our economy, industrialization, is not there.
Yeah, I think we made the same mistake that Britain made, and is now suffering for it. A mistake that Germany avoided. Technical and vocational schools are supposed to produce the middle-level manpower. And in any economy, the thinkers are at the top, but there are few. Those who really hold the economy are the middle-level manpower. Britain made the mistake of converting all its polytechnics into into universities. I wouldn't say technical universities, into universities. Now you go to Hatfield. Hatfield used to be one of the best polytechnics in Britain. Now it's Hatfield University, and they are doing philosophy, they are doing sociology, etc. So Britain is suffering from a deficit of middle-level manpower. That's why they are importing a lot of middle-level manpower and woman power, especially woman power, from the Eastern European countries as well as Africa. Nurses, technicians, etc.
Doctors.
Doctors. You know, Germany, of course, had these technical universities, but they also have what they call the Fachhochschule. That is where they go and do the hands-on technical work. They didn't kill them. They are there. So Germany's economy is still the strongest in Europe.
It's the industrial hub when it comes to Europe.
Exactly. So that's where we probably have, you know, we seem to have neglected technical and vocation. We seem to be thinking that everybody must go the grammar school line. And then we expect products of the grammar school education to now go to the technical universities. It doesn't happen that way. If we were to be able to create the situation that they are now trying to create, and they must be commended for that, where the level of technical education is raised such that you go to a technical school and you go through that line to qualify to enter a technical high school, you then qualify to go to a technical university, so that the technical universities gain their intake from the senior technical high schools and not from the grammar school type of schools. No, it becomes a source for personnel into the technical universities. And then some will branch into middle-level technical education also.
Right.
It's not everybody who should aspire to university education. I'm not saying that aspiring to university education is a sin or is not a good thing. But every country, provided you make sure that the people have jobs and they are well paid for.
And that also feeds into creating jobs and stemming the tide of unemployment. Let me quickly, this just comes to mind. Agenda 111, the district hospital bit. Since we've spoken about medical education, let me just weave that in. There was an interaction recently. In fact, we were trying to source information from the Ministry of Health, and we were told at the multimedia group JoyNews that the ministry did not have the relevant information when it comes to Agenda 111. But prior to that, in January, we had heard from the same sector minister, Kwajima Menu, talking about the fact that 55 of them had started, and all of that. Another project. Indeed, we have hospitals that need help. We're starting 111 of them. Funding is a bit questionable right now, the economy and all of that. Are we getting this wrong? If you had to advise or give counsel to government on this, what advice would it be?
Well, it's just another example of what I alluded to a few minutes ago, that in this country, we love starting new things, but we hate maintaining what we start and making sure that what we start works. I have nothing much to say about Agenda 111. I hope and pray that if indeed it happens.
Are you hopeful it will happen?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what government's plans are. I don't know whether there is any policy paper. I haven't seen any policy paper so that I can study it. With the setting up of UHAS in Ho, I had the privilege of being given the plan, the policy document, the draft policies document, to study and send my views as an independent person. And I sent a 15-page policy review paper to the then government. Many of the things I suggested were put into the implementation. Now look at the way UHAS is growing because of the way it started.
In 10 years, it is it's producing medical graduates and all of that.
A lot of thinking went into that, and a lot of consultation went into that. Apart from the individuals who who looked at the policy document and sent in ideas, there was also a public forum held at Gimpa, where stakeholders' views were sought. So it was started on solid ground. I don't know how much thinking has gone into some of these new flagship programs. I don't know. Maybe it has happened, but I don't know.
Is that part of the problem? Sometimes these things are being done and the likes of you are not consulted. Maybe politicians and technocrats sit down and do certain things, and we waste taxpayers' money.
Maybe it's because of my age. They think I'm now senile.
You don't sound it at all. You are sharp as a razor blade. But let's talk a bit about the current state of things, the economy. Let me ask first, how are you feeling the economic pinch? Fuel prices are up. The last time I purchased fuel, it was almost at 11 cedis, and it's such a short time ago since I was buying at 6 cedis. The tax component on fuel products is almost 3 cedis, around 2 cedis and 70 pesos. The cedi is fast losing ground to foreign currencies. The dollar, it's pegged at over 8 cedis now if you want $1. The Great British Pound, the Euro, even the CFA, I hear we are losing ground. And if the land borders are opened and people start trading within the sub-region, the Francophone community, it's going to be bad. When you look at our economy, what do you see? And with the finance ministry now going to give some outlook about ways out of this, pumping $2 billion into the system to show up the cedi, some salary pay cuts for some members of the executive and all of that. Will this be enough? What do you see in terms of the economy? How are you feeling it? And what do you think the way forward is?
Well, the way I feel it personally, I don't think I'm different from any other Ghanaian. I used to fill my little car standing over there with 200 cedis. Just 5 days ago, I bought 300 cedis, and it didn't even come to half tank.
You used to fill your tank with 200 cedis? I used to fill
it with 200 cedis.
Fill? 200?
Fill, yes. Fill!
Last week, you bought 300 cedis?
I bought 300. My petrol light started showing. I was going for the Agri-Fraser lecture at Legon, exactly a week today. And then I saw that my petrol warning light was showing. So on my way back, I branched at Goyle, which is one of the lowest prices. And I bought 300 cedis. And it came to half tank. It didn't even get to half tank.
200 cedis was filling your tank. Yes. Now 300 cedis gives you half.
Half.
So in other words, you need about 600 cedis. That is about
roughly
an extra 200% to be able to fill your tank.
Yeah. That's for fuel.
Some of us thought we were alone in this business.
And my pension has not changed. I had a university career, and I rose to the very highest level, Vice Chancellor. If I tell you what I take as pension, you may squirm.
Nothing to write home about? Not
at all.
Is this something else we should look at, our pensions regime?
Especially for the older generation. It's not easy. Now we are growing older than we used to. And my predecessors are even worse off. That is, you know, our pension is calculated on the salary on which you retired. So you can imagine what people like Kwapong and Ajay Bekunyanko were going through as far as their pension in Legon was concerned. If on retirement, they hadn't gone to work in international organizations, I don't know what would have.
I mean, if you as a Vice Chancellor at the very highest point, the very height of things, if you are saying this, then you can just imagine those who are even down below.
Well, you see, it wasn't until UTAC people started talking that people started asking about that these people are asking for all this, how
conditions
much
of service and all of that.
And they started telling people what their take-home pay was. Then people were saying, wow, but it's been like that for a very long time. Our university teachers in this country are not well remunerated. Their conditions of service are bad. And not only that, in spite of the little that they get, I know at least for the science people, it is probably the same with the humanities people. I know for the science people that some of them dip into their pockets to support the research projects of their students because they don't want them to see them suffer. I'm telling you this. So when people are criticizing the university teachers for what they are asking for, they should ask for the nitty-gritty. They should ask for the details of what they go through.
So when the university teachers went on strike recently complaining about conditions of service, that was justified?
I can't tell whether it was justified or not. That's a legal issue. When you put it that way, it's a legal issue. But what I will say is that looking at myself on pension, what I get, what my predecessors were getting, and what my successors are getting as pension, which is a percentage of what I used to get as an employee, then the university teachers need to be looked at. And looked at positively, notwithstanding the economic problems that we are going through.
What they shouldn't be used as an excuse.
No, what they're asking for is that they should be sent to 2013 conditions. Just as we are saying that we want to send our economy back to pre-COVID, they also want to be sent back to a certain point where they feel they were at least a little better off. Because one is not supposed to lose in terms of remuneration. But the value of the remuneration has been going down faster than the general average in the country. And that is a fact.
Right. So when you look at the economic conditions, as the finance minister addresses the country on the raft of measures to shore up our economy, what are some of the things you think should be done and said to aid the ordinary Ghanaian, the commoner?
Well, to me, they should look at some of the revenue guzzling, unnecessary sources of expenditure. Government expenditure, public expenditure. And I'm distinguishing between government expenditure, that is what is spent on governance, and public expenditure, what is spent on the public as a whole. They should look at these two. Mm. They should set an example, however token-like it turns out to be. At least give people the confidence that something is being done. And make sure that it is not just scratching the surface, that it is meaningful.
We should avoid tokenism.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Thirdly, when people talk, they should not be looked at as enemies. They should not be treated as pariahs of the society. However stupid somebody's view may sound, if you listen to it carefully, because the person thought about it, you may find a modicum of wisdom which you can make use of. So we should be open to discussion, we should be open to criticism.
Right.
As to what measures they will take, it's the economic gurus who will be able to determine that.
In terms of the measures, for example, and this is to wrap off the conversation, people have spoken about the e-levy, where your mobile money transactions are going to be taxed after a certain cap, after 100 cedis, 1.5%, brought down from 1.75%. And some have said, no, let's go to the IMF. There they will force you to tighten your belt and do the right things. Where do you lie on that spectrum? As we wrap up this conversation?
When it comes to e-levy, just as a joke, me, I don't do e-levy.
So you're even outside the market?
I'm outside the market. My son always tells people that, as for my father, he likes going to the bank and making sure that he signs a check and collects his money right there. He doesn't like this electronic thing.
But for those down there who will face it?
For those who use it, people have described it in all sorts of ways. And they have a case. Government also has a case in saying that we need revenue. The economics of it, I am not in a position to pontificate on that. I don't want to say anything that may be misconstrued as ignorance.
Right.
Yeah.
But in terms of going to the IMF, from your experience in Ghana's history,
we've been to the IMF several times.
Would it force us to do the right thing in terms of our economy?
Well, I remember during my time in politics, 79 to 81, especially 81, when, the George Bene budget issue. Part of the package was to go to IMF. And in fact, he was in Washington negotiating with IMF when the budget thing, the debate went on in Parliament with all its repercussions. And when Jerry John Rawlings took over, they jettisoned the IMF idea, saying that it was imperialist and colonialist and neo-colonialist, whatever. And for 2 years, we really sank. And they were bold enough to say, look, we made a mistake. We are going to the IMF. And they did. And we all saw what happened.
So there's nothing wrong now if you're in the doldrums, you can get support from them.
Well, we may not get the same amount of money we will get if we go borrowing from the international finance market. But the advantage is that they will bring in certain measures that will force you to be disciplined in your financial management. That alone may be a benefit, provided the country will be prepared to swallow it.
Okay.
As the then President Hilary Mann said, the IMF was saying that at that time that our economy needed surgical treatment. And then he retorted to them that yes, we need surgical treatment, but like a good surgeon, no good surgeon will do a surgery on a patient that is anemic. So we were anemic at the time. So the IMF ought to first put in the money or put in the blood before the surgery is done. So that was the view that was taken. So it depends upon how you approach the IMF.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Prof, it's always, always, always so refreshing and brain-turning, if you like, interacting with you. But for those who may think that you are growing senile, it is very far from, I mean, if ever, you are sharp as a razor, and I'm grateful that you've taken the time.
Well, I said it as a joke.
To join us. Statesman, academic, former Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana, Professor Ivan Adai-Mensah, sharing his thoughts there. Catch more on our social media pages as we share stories from that. But did you know that the income of a young entrepreneur from some selected businesses is exempt from tax for 5 years? Any young entrepreneur engaged in manufacturing, information and communications, technology, agro-processing, energy production, waste processing, tourism and the creative arts, horticulture and medicinal plants does not need to pay income tax on these activities for their first 5 years of operation. A young entrepreneur engaged in business that enjoys an initial 5-year concession benefits from the following applicable tax rates for an additional 5 years. Pay attention. Accra and Tema, 15%. Other regional capitals outside the 3 northern regions, 12.5%. Outside the other regional capitals, 10%. And in the 3 northern regions, it stands at 5%. I'm sure you want more clarity and information on that as an entrepreneur. Just reach out to your nearest GRA office and they'll give you the details of that. Thank you for staying with us this morning on the AM show. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Let's connect same time tomorrow. Good day.